The day Aubrielle and I cut the bright blue ribbon outside our new coffee shop on Maple Street, the entire town of Willow Creek seemed to hold its breath then explode into laughter. Lesbian business in our town? Good luck lasting a month. Old Mr. Hargrove called out from the sidewalk, his buddies nodding like it was the funniest joke they'd heard all year. I squeezed Aubrielle's hand tighter, feeling the warmth of her palm steady me even as my stomach twisted because none of them knew the real reason I had almost walked away from her 5 years earlier. The sign above us read "Brewed Hearts" in soft white letters, and inside the smell of fresh espresso and cinnamon rolls already drifted out, but the stares from across the street burned hotter than any oven. Aubrielle smiled at the small crowd. We had actually invited our first customers, her blonde hair catching the afternoon sun like it always did when she was nervous, but trying not to show it. "We did it, Ava," she whispered, leaning close enough that only I could hear. I wanted to believe her, I really did. The bank loan had been approved after months of paperwork, our savings drained, but the dream finally real. Yet as I watched Mrs. Patterson from the PDA turn her nose up and mutter something to her daughter, I felt the old familiar weight settle back on my chest, the same weight that had crushed me the night I told Aubrielle we couldn't be together because my parents would never accept it. Back then I was 23, fresh out of college, working at the family hardware store in the next county over. My father had just suffered his first heart scare, and my mother sat me down with tears in her eyes saying, "Ava, honey, this life you're choosing, it will kill them both." So I ended it. I told Aubrielle over coffee in a Seattle cafe that I needed to focus on family, that I wasn't ready for anything serious. She cried quietly, wiped her eyes with the back of her hand, and walked out without slamming the door. I thought that was the end. I dated a boy from church for 6 miserable months just to keep the peace until the guilt ate me alive, and I broke that off too. Now here we were 5 years later, somehow finding each other again after a chance meeting at a Portland farmer's market. Aubrielle had moved to Willow Creek for a teaching job, and I had followed her this time, refusing to let fear win. We poured every penny into this cafe, dreaming of a place where people could come for more than just coffee, a space that felt safe. But the town wasn't having it. By closing time that first day, we had served exactly 12 customers, most of them out-of-towners passing through. The register barely covered the cost of beans. That night in our tiny apartment above the shop, Aubrielle curled against me on the couch, her head on my shoulder. "They'll come around," she said softly. I nodded, but my mind drifted back to the letter my mother had sent last week, the one I hadn't shown Aubrielle yet. "If you insist on this lifestyle, don't expect us at Thanksgiving." The words still stung. I kissed the top of Aubrielle's head, breathing in her vanilla shampoo, and promised myself I would protect us this time no matter what. The next morning the real trouble started. Someone had spray painted "Go Home" in red across our front window overnight. Aubrielle gasped when she saw it, but I grabbed the cleaner and got to work before the first customers arrived. Word spread fast. By noon the cafe was empty again, except for a couple of teenagers who ordered lattes then snickered behind their phones. I kept smiling, pouring foam art into each cup like my heart wasn't cracking open all over again. As the afternoon dragged on, I caught myself staring at the old photo I kept hidden in the drawer behind the counter, a picture of Aubrielle and me from that Seattle cafe 5 years ago. In it she was laughing, her head thrown back, while I looked at her like she hung the moon. I had almost thrown it away the night I ended things, but something stopped me. Now it felt like a warning and a promise all at once. Mrs. Patterson walked in around 3 o'clock, her lips pressed into a thin line. "Just a black coffee," she said, not meeting my eyes. I rang her up, hand steady, even though inside I was screaming. When she left without a thank you, Aubrielle touched my arm gently. "One at a time, Ava. That's how we win." But winning felt impossible when every customer who left seemed to take a piece of my hope with them. By the end of week 1 we had made enough to cover utilities, but not much else. The local paper ran a small article titled, "New Business Brings Controversy to Willow Creek," quoting anonymous residents who called us an experiment that won't last. Aubrielle read it aloud in bed that night, her voice cracking only once. I held her close, promising we would prove them wrong, even as the secret from my past gnawed at me, the one I still hadn't told her about, the real reason I had pushed her away so hard. The following Monday the high school principal, Mr. Ellis, stopped by. He ordered 2 cappuccinos, then lingered at the counter. "Heard you two are quite the pair," he said, his tone careful. Before I could answer, the door chimed and my younger sister Claire walked in, her eyes wide with surprise. She hadn't spoken to me since I left home for good 6 months ago. "Ava?" she whispered, staring between me and Aubrielle. The air grew thick with everything unsaid. That was the moment I realized the past wasn't staying buried. Claire's arrival was only the beginning, and the town's mockery was about to become the least of my problems. Claire stood frozen in the doorway, her backpack slipping from one shoulder as she took in the scene. The cafe smelled of vanilla syrup and fresh grounds, but the tension was thicker than the foam on our drinks. "You didn't tell me you were back in town," she said finally, her voice small. I wiped my hands on my apron, forcing a smile. "Surprise." Aubrielle stepped forward, extending her hand. "I'm Aubrielle. Nice to meet you." Claire shook it briefly, then looked at me again, the same disappointed expression our mother used to wear. After she left with a to-go latte, I felt the weight of all the unanswered texts I had ignored for months. My family had cut me off when I chose Aubrielle the second time around. Dad's health had stabilized, but Mom still sent weekly emails begging me to come to my senses. I hadn't replied to any of them. Now Claire's visit felt like a crack in the dam, and I wasn't sure I could keep the water back. Business picked up slightly by Wednesday. A few teachers from the middle school started coming in after class, ordering pumpkin spice lattes and chatting awkwardly about the weather. One of them, Mrs. Lang, even complimented our cinnamon rolls. "Best I've had since my grandma's," she said, smiling for the first time. Aubrielle beamed, squeezing my hand behind the counter. Small victories. But every night after closing, I lay awake replaying the night I had broken Aubrielle's heart. It had been raining in Seattle, the kind of downpour that made the city lights blur. We had been together 3 months, secretly meeting after work, talking about moving in together someday. Then my mother called, crying about Dad's chest pains, and I panicked. I met Aubrielle at our usual cafe and said the words I still regretted. "I can't do this anymore. My family needs me, and Thesusit's too much." She had looked at me like I had slapped her. "You promised Ava. You said you were done hiding." I had no answer. I just watched her leave, the rain soaking her coat as she walked away. 5 years later, I still hadn't told her the full truth, that my parents had threatened to cut me out of the will, and that Dad had said he would rather die than have a dyke daughter. The shame of it burned even now. Thursday brought the first real confrontation. Mr. Hargrove came in with 2 of his buddies, ordering black coffees, then refusing to leave the counter. "You girls think you can just waltz into our town and change everything?" he asked, loud enough for the 3 customers in the corner to hear. Aubrielle's cheeks flushed, but she kept her voice steady. "We're just trying to run a business, sir." He laughed. "Business? This is a statement. And statements don't pay taxes." They left without tipping, leaving their cups half full. That evening I found Aubrielle in the back room, crying quietly while she wiped down the espresso machine. I pulled her into my arms, letting her sob against my chest. "I'm sorry," I whispered, knowing the words were too small. She pulled back, wiping her eyes. "It's not your fault, Ava. But sometimes I wonder if you regret choosing me again." The question hit like a punch. I wanted to tell her everything right then, the letters, the threats, the guilt that still kept me up at night. But the words stuck in my throat. Instead, I kissed her forehead and promised never. Friday, the cafe saw its busiest day yet. A group of college kids from the community college 20 miles away posted photos on social media, and suddenly we had a line out the door. Instagram stories tagged Brood Hearts went viral locally, and by closing we had sold out of everything. Aubrielle danced around the empty shop, laughing for the first time in days. I laughed with her, but inside the secret pressed heavier. Claire had texted me that afternoon. "Mom saw the posts. She's not happy." Saturday morning, I woke to a voicemail from my mother. "Ava, we need to talk. This isn't just about you anymore." I deleted it before Aubrielle could hear. The cafe opened at 8 and the line was already forming. Among the new faces was Mr. Ellis, the principal, again, this time with his wife. They ordered breakfast sandwiches and actually sat down to eat. "Place has a nice feel," he admitted grudgingly. It was the first crack in the town's armor. But cracks let things through. That afternoon Claire returned, this time with our cousin Jenna in tow. They ordered drinks, then pulled me aside near the restroom. "Mom's planning to come next week," Claire said quietly. "She wants to see for herself." Jenna added, "And she's bringing Dad's old Bible study group." "They're not coming for coffee, Ava." My stomach dropped. I glanced back at Aubrielle, who was cheerfully helping a customer, her blonde hair tied back in a messy bun, looking so happy I couldn't bear to ruin it. That night after closing, I finally opened the drawer and took out the old photo again. Aubrielle walked in and saw it before I could hide it. "Is Thetis?" she asked softly. I nodded, unable to speak. She took the picture from my hands, tracing our younger faces with her finger. "I never stopped loving you even after you left." The words broke something inside me. I pulled her close, breathing her in, and for the first time in years I let myself cry. The next week brought the storm I had feared. My mother arrived on Tuesday with 2 women from church. They ordered herbal teas, then sat in the corner staring. Aubrielle greeted them politely, but I could see the tension in her shoulders. When they left, my mother lingered at the counter. "This place is nice, honey, but is it worth losing your family?" Her eyes flicked to Aubrielle, then back to me. I felt the old panic rising, the same panic that had made me walk away 5 years ago. Wednesday, the vandalism returned. This time the spray paint read "Sinners" across the sidewall. The police took a report but shrugged. "Kids probably." Aubrielle stayed silent the whole time, but I saw the hurt in her eyes. That night we argued for the first time since opening. "Why won't you tell me what really happened back then?" she asked, her voice shaking. I couldn't answer. The secret sat between us like a wall. By Friday the cafe was packed again, the college crowd returning with friends. Social media had turned us into a local sensation, the underdog story people loved to root for. Yet every time the door opened I braced for my family. Claire texted daily updates. "Mom's gathering more people. Be careful." Saturday morning the line stretched down the block. We ran out of cups twice. Aubrielle and I moved like a well-oiled machine, laughing between orders, stealing quick kisses when no one was looking. For a moment it felt like we might actually make it. Then my mother walked in with 6 people from her church group. The cafe went quiet. She ordered nothing, just stood there staring at us. "Ava, we need to talk." "Outside." I followed her to the sidewalk, heart pounding. "This has gone far enough," she said, her voice low. "Your father's health is failing again, and the stress of knowing his daughter is living in sin is killing him." She pulled out a folded letter, the same one I had ignored. "Sign this. Come home. Leave her." The paper shook in my hand. Behind me through the window I could see Aubrielle serving customers, her smile faltering when she noticed me. I looked at my mother, the woman who had raised me, and for the first time I saw the fear behind her anger. But I also saw the years of silence I had chosen. "No, Mom," I said, handing the letter back. "I'm not leaving her again." She turned and walked away, the church group following like shadows. Inside the cafe the noise slowly returned, but the damage was done. Aubrielle met my eyes through the glass, and I knew the conversation we had avoided for 5 years was finally coming. The rest of Saturday passed in a blur of orders and forced smiles. Aubrielle didn't ask what my mother had said, but the question hung between every latte I poured. When we finally flipped the close sign at 7, the silence in the empty cafe felt heavier than the morning rush. She wiped down the counter slowly, her movements deliberate. "You're still hiding something, Ava. I can feel it." I leaned against the espresso machine, the steam wand still warm against my back. "It's not that simple." She turned to face me, eyes shining with unshed tears. 5 years ago you walked away without a real explanation. Now your family shows up and suddenly you're shaking again. I deserved the truth. The words I had practiced 1,000 times in my head refused to come. Instead I heard my father's voice from that long ago hospital hallway. "If you choose that life, don't expect me to walk you down any aisle." I had been 23, terrified of losing the only family I knew. So I chose silence. Aubrielle waited. When I stayed quiet she sighed and headed upstairs to our apartment. I followed a few minutes later, finding her on the couch scrolling through old photos on her phone. I sat beside her and finally spoke. "My parents threatened to cut me off completely. Dad said he would rather die than have a lesbian daughter." I was scared, Aubrielle. "I thought if I ended it they would get better and I could come back to you later." She listened without interrupting, her face unreadable. When I finished she set the phone down. "You chose them over me." Again. The word again cut deep because she was right. Even now, with the cafe thriving, I had almost let fear win. We went to bed without touching each other for the first time since moving in together. I lay awake listening to her breathing, wondering if I had ruined the one good thing I had fought for. Sunday morning the cafe opened to a surprise. The college kids had organized a small protest outside, not against us but for us. They held signs reading "Love is Love" and "Support Local." A few townspeople crossed the street to avoid them, but several others stopped to read the signs. Business doubled. Aubrielle worked the register with quiet determination, but her smiles didn't reach her eyes. I wanted to fix it, but the words still wouldn't come. Monday brought Claire again, this time alone. She ordered a mocha and sat at the corner table watching me. When the rush died down, she approached. Mom's not giving up. She's talking to the town council about zoning issues for your shop. My stomach dropped. Claire's voice softened. I don't agree with her, Ava, but I miss my sister. Whatever secret you're keeping, it's eating you alive. She left before I could respond. That afternoon, Mr. Hargrove returned with a different attitude. He ordered a cappuccino, then lingered. Heard about the protest. Town split down the middle now. He almost smiled. My granddaughter saw your place on TikTok. Wants me to bring her here after school. It was the first olive branch. I nodded grateful, but the victory felt hollow without Aubrielle's full trust. Tuesday, the zoning letter arrived, certified mail. The town council wanted to review our business license citing community standards. Aubrielle read it over my shoulder, her hand finding mine for the first time in days. We fight this together, she said quietly. I squeezed her fingers, vowing silently to tell her everything before the hearing. Wednesday night, we closed early for the first time. I made her favorite pasta and lit candles on the tiny kitchen table. Over dinner, I finally let the whole story spill out, the hospital threats, the will, the months I spent pretending to be someone else. Aubrielle listened, tears falling freely. When I finished, she stood up, walked around the table, and pulled me into her arms. Thank you for telling me, she whispered. It hurts, but I understand now. We stayed like that for a long time, the weight of 5 years finally lifting. Thursday, the hearing was scheduled for the following week. The cafe stayed busy, the protest kids returning daily, bringing their friends. Social media had exploded and orders for merchandise started pouring in. People from neighboring towns drove an hour just to show support. Yet every night, Aubrielle and I talked deeper than we had in years. She shared her own pain, the night she cried after I left, the therapy she went through. I listened, feeling the guilt transform into something closer to determination. Friday, my mother called. I answered, this time putting her on speaker so Aubrielle could hear. Ava, the council meeting is public. Your father and I will be there. Her voice cracked. Please think about what you're doing to this family. I looked at Aubrielle, who nodded encouragement. I have thought about it, Mom. This is my family now. The line went silent, then she hung up. Saturday, the cafe hit a new record. We sold out of every pastry by noon. Aubrielle danced behind the counter when the last customer left, hugging me tightly. We're actually doing it, she laughed. I kissed her right there in the middle of the shop, not caring who might see. For the first time, the future felt possible. But Sunday morning, the past struck again. A reporter from the local paper showed up with a photographer. We heard about the family drama, he said, notepad ready. Care to comment on the claim that your parents are threatening legal action? My blood ran cold. Someone had leaked the story. Aubrielle's hand found mine under the counter. We have nothing to hide, I said, though my voice shook. The article would run Monday and the council hearing was Tuesday. The town that had mocked us was now watching our every move. That night, I dreamed of the rainy Seattle cafe 5 years ago. This time, when Aubrielle walked away, I ran after her. I woke with her arms around me and made a silent promise. No more running. Monday's newspaper hit the stands like a bomb. The headline read, Local Cafe Owners Face Family Ultimatum, with a photo of brood hearts and a smaller inset of my parents' church. Customers poured in all day, some supportive, some clearly there to gawk. Aubrielle handled the register with grace while I worked the espresso machine, my hands steady, even when I overheard whispers. Poor girl. Family disowning her like that. By closing time, the tip jar overflowed with notes of encouragement. Claire showed up after school, her eyes red. Mom saw the paper. She's furious. She hugged me quickly, then left with 2 brownies for her friends. The small gesture meant more than she knew. Aubrielle locked the door behind the last customer and turned to me. Tomorrow's the hearing. Whatever happens, we face it together. I pulled her close, breathing in her familiar scent. The secret was out, but instead of destroying us, it had freed something. Tuesday morning, the town hall was packed. My parents sat on one side of the room, my mother's face pale. Aubrielle and I sat in the front row, holding hands openly. Mr. Ellis called the meeting to order, reading the zoning complaint aloud. Claims have been made that this business disrupts community values. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. My mother stood first. My daughter was raised with certain beliefs. This cafe represents a lifestyle we cannot support. Her voice broke on the last word. I stood next, my legs shaking. 5 years ago I walked away from the woman I love because I was terrified of losing my family. I hurt her deeply and I hurt myself. But I'm not that scared girl anymore. Brood Hearts is more than a coffee shop. It's a place where people can be themselves without fear. The room went silent. Aubrielle squeezed my hand. Then something unexpected happened. Mrs. Lang, the middle school teacher, stood up. I've been coming here every day. Those 2 girls work harder than anyone I know. And their coffee is fantastic. A few people chuckled. Then the college kids started clapping. One by one more voices joined in. Mr. Hargrove surprised everyone by standing. I was wrong about them. The shop brings business to town. My granddaughter loves it here. My mother sat down slowly, looking smaller than I had ever seen her. The council voted to table the zoning issue for further review. As we walked out, people patted our shoulders, offering words of support. Outside, my father waited alone. He looked at me for a long moment, then at Aubrielle. You two seem happy, he said gruffly. It wasn't an apology, but it was a start. That afternoon the cafe was busier than ever. News of the hearing had spread and customers lined the block. We ran out of cups again, but no one minded. Aubrielle and I moved in sync, laughing between orders. For the first time the town felt like it might actually accept us. Wednesday brought another surprise. The principal, Mr. Ellis, returned with a proposal. The school wants to partner with you for a monthly fundraiser. Teachers love your place. Aubrielle's eyes lit up. We shook hands on the spot. Small steps, but each one felt like victory. Thursday my sister Claire brought friends after school. They took over a corner table doing homework and ordering endless refills. One girl whispered to me, "You two are goals." I smiled, feeling the warmth spread through my chest. That night Aubrielle and I cooked dinner together, talking about expanding the menu. The future stretched ahead, bright and possible. Friday the real test came. My mother walked in alone during the afternoon lull. She ordered a chamomile tea, then sat at the counter. "I read the article again," she said quietly. "I didn't know how much you were hurting back then." Tears filled her eyes. "I'm sorry, Ava. I was scared too." For the first time in years I saw my mother not as the enemy but as a woman trapped by her own fears. We talked for 20 minutes. She didn't accept everything, but she promised to try. When she left she hugged me briefly. Aubrielle watched from the back, her smile soft. Saturday the line stretched around the block. We hired 2 part-time baristas from the college to keep up. The cafe buzzed with laughter and conversation. Someone started a petition to name Brood Hearts Business of the Year. Aubrielle and I stole a moment in the back room, kissing quickly before returning to the rush. Sunday we closed for the day and drove to the coast. Walking on the beach hand in hand, Aubrielle stopped and turned to me. "I'm proud of you, Ava, for fighting for us." I kissed her, tasting salt from the sea air. The past still lingered, but it no longer controlled us. Monday morning a group of local business owners showed up. Mr. Hargrove led them. "We've been talking. The Chamber of Commerce wants to feature your shop in the holiday brochure. And a few of us are interested in partnering for events." I stared at them, stunned. 6 months ago they had mocked us. Now they wanted to work together. Aubrielle laughed softly beside me. "We'd love that," she said. The rest of the week passed in a whirlwind of meetings and orders. The cafe became the heart of the town. People who once whispered now stopped to chat. My parents even sent a small plant for the windowsill with a note that simply said, "Proud." By the end of month 4 Brood Hearts had become a landmark. Tourists detoured through Willow Creek just to visit. We expanded the menu, adding Aubrielle's grandmother's secret scone recipe and my mother's old banana bread formula she had quietly shared during one of her visits. The partnership with the school brought in steady fundraiser traffic, and the chamber events filled our calendar. Yet the biggest change was inside me. The guilt that had haunted me for years had transformed into something quieter, a reminder of how far I had come. Aubrielle and I fell into a comfortable rhythm. Mornings she opened while I prepped pastries. Evenings we counted receipts on the couch upstairs, planning our next steps. One night she looked up from the spreadsheet. "Remember when they laughed at us? I nodded, smiling. Now they can't stay away. Claire had become a regular, bringing her friends after soccer practice. My mother visited twice a month, sometimes sitting quietly in the corner, sometimes helping with dishes. Dad still hadn't come, but he sent a check for new equipment with a note, for the business. Small steps. Then came the day everything shifted again. A major coffee chain approached us with an offer to franchise. The representative, a sharp woman in a suit, met us after closing. Your story is inspiring. We want to bring Brewed Hearts to other small towns. Aubrielle and I looked at each other. The money would be life-changing, but it would mean losing the intimate feel we had fought for. We asked for time to think. That night we talked for hours. I don't want to lose what we built, Aubrielle said, curling against me. I agreed. The next morning we politely declined the offer, choosing instead to stay independent. The decision felt right. Word spread quickly. Local businesses who had once mocked us now reached out for collaborations. The bookstore wanted a joint book and brew night. The bakery down the street proposed a monthly pastry swap. Mr. Hargrove even asked if we could supply coffee for his hardware store events. 6 months after opening, the same people who had spray-painted our windows were now lining up to partner. One afternoon, Mr. Ellis brought the entire school board for a meeting. They ordered trays of pastries and discussed hosting the winter festival at our expanded patio. As they left, one board member shook my hand. You two changed this town. Thank you. Aubrielle and I stood in the empty cafe holding each other, the weight of every whispered insult finally lifting. My family's healing continued slowly. Claire moved into the apartment above the hardware store and started working part-time at the cafe. Mom and I had long talks over tea about forgiveness and fear. Dad sent a text one Sunday. Heard the shop is doing well. Maybe I'll stop by soon. I cried reading it. The town council officially named Brewed Hearts Business of the Year at a small ceremony. The same hall where we had fought for our license now filled with applause. My parents sat in the front row. When I accepted the plaque, I thanked Aubrielle publicly for never giving up on me. She wiped tears from her eyes as the crowd cheered. Life settled into a beautiful new normal. Mornings filled with laughter, customers who felt like friends. Evenings, Aubrielle and I walked the quiet streets talking about the future. We started saving for a house with a big kitchen where we could host family dinners. The past still visited in quiet moments, but it no longer defined us. Then one rainy Tuesday, the kind that reminded me of Seattle, a familiar face walked in. An old college friend of mine who had known me during the years I hid. She ordered a latte, then hugged me tightly. I saw the article. I'm so happy for you, Ava. We talked for 20 minutes, catching up. When she left, Aubrielle smiled from behind the counter. See? Even the past can bring good things now. The cafe continued to thrive. We hired 2 more staff members, both local kids who needed part-time work. The college group started a study club in our corner every Wednesday. Tourists bought merchandise faster than we could restock. And every night Aubrielle and I closed the shop together, turning off the lights and locking the door hand in hand. 6 months after the ribbon cutting, the same people who had mocked us now waited in line for partnerships. The hardware store wanted exclusive coffee service. The elementary school asked for a field trip program. Even the church group my mother belonged to requested catering for their annual picnic. Each request felt like quiet redemption. The holiday season arrived in a swirl of lights and cinnamon. Brewed Hearts hosted its first Christmas market in partnership with half the town. Booths lined the street, our cafe serving as headquarters. My parents attended the opening night, Dad finally stepping inside for the first time. He ordered a plain coffee, looked around and nodded. You did good, kid. It was the closest he had come to approval. Mom hugged Aubrielle briefly, whispering something that made her smile. Claire helped run the register, her friends decorating the windows with snowflakes. The college kids performed carols outside, drawing even more people. By the end of the night, we had raised money for the local food bank, and the town felt united in a way I had never imagined possible. New Year's Eve, we closed early for a private party. Aubrielle and I invited everyone who had supported us from the beginning. Mr. Hargrove brought his granddaughter. Mrs. Lang brought her husband. My family sat at the big table laughing with the teachers and students. At midnight we toasted with sparkling cider, Aubrielle pulling me close for a kiss as fireworks lit the sky. January brought new challenges. A storm knocked out power for 2 days, but the town rallied, bringing generators and hot meals. We kept the cafe open with propane heaters serving free coffee to anyone who needed warmth. The experience bonded us even deeper with Willow Creek. February brought the biggest surprise yet. The coffee chain we had turned down reached out again, this time offering a different kind of partnership, a collaboration on a limited edition blend, named after our story. We accepted on our terms, keeping full control of brewed hearts. The blend sold out online in hours. March marked our first anniversary. We threw a huge party inviting the entire town. The line stretched longer than opening day, but this time the faces were smiling. My mother baked her famous pies for the dessert table. Dad helped set up chairs. Claire gave a toast that made everyone tear up. As the night wound down, Aubrielle and I stood outside looking at the glowing windows. "We did it," she whispered. I kissed her softly, the same way I had wanted to 5 years ago in Seattle. The past had shaped us, but it no longer owned us. Looking back at everything, the mockery, the secrets, the confrontations, and the slow, hard-won acceptance, I realized the journey had been worth every tear. The town that once rejected us now embraced us. The family that had threatened to disown me now sat at our table. And the love I had almost thrown away had become the foundation of everything good in my life. But as the last customer left our now thriving cafe, and the lights dimmed, I couldn't help but wonder. Was breaking my own heart to please my family ever the right choice, or did my years of silence cause more pain than the truth ever could?